I've made various renditions of living walls over the years that I've all thoroughly enjoyed. However, they're usually pretty involved to make. So a few months back I designed something that would be a little easier to make on a much smaller scale. That said, I've held off on making it till now because I wanted a container that didn't require modifications. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything better than what I used for the self-watering moss wall, so I'll use that again. I got this container and lid from Target for around $5, and like the other project, these need slight modifications to work. I used a speed square to score a straight line on the lid. Then I passed over it several times with a blade. Eventually I was able to snap off the bottom section. I went back and scraped off any excess to ensure it looks as clean as possible. This little section makes it possible to create a barrier at the bottom of the main container. I'll lock it on with some super glue. I applied it along the lip and pressed it onto the main piece. After drying, it looked like this, which will work perfect for the build. All of these additional steps are what I was trying to eliminate, but there was really no way around it. Anyway, turning this into a living wall requires a few other materials. The first component I'll focus on is this air conditioning foam seal. It's the perfect thickness already, and believe it or not, will create an excellent growing medium for plants. I cut out 3 identical lengths of this. These fit perfectly into the container without any modifications. Water absorption is essential to make a system like this low maintenance and easy to care for. Various materials could work for that, but I decided to use capillary wicking rope. I cut into the top of each block to nest this in. As I did, I doubled it up to make things more effective. I only want the rope to be doubled though, so I had to go back and cut off a few sections. The foam blocks still fit perfectly in the container, even with the ropes. The only difference now is that the areas around the foam will be engorged with water at all times. Here the ropes will pull water from the bottom of the system and keep the roots hydrated. These gaps between the foam will also make it very easy to add the plants. Before I can do that though, I have to clean them off. I soaked the plants to start to make my job easier. Then I carefully removed the substrate from the roots. I gave them a quick swish in water to remove anything that remained. I left these in water to keep them hydrated while I work. As I alluded to, adding the plants will be an easy process. However, it will be made even easier with a proper pair of tweezers. The trick to all of this is to grab the plants by their roots. Doing this makes it easier to situate them near the ropes. Sure, they'll eventually grow to them anyway since that's where the water is, but if we begin near them, we can ensure the plants remain hydrated. Even though adding the plants is easy, placing them is an art. What I mean is that understanding where to put certain textures or colors will make all of the difference in how the living wall appears. For example, the sense of scale is greatly improved by adding fine textures like ferns and Selaginella near larger leafed plants like Cryptanthus. Otherwise, things will likely look haphazard and sloppy. Limiting the amount of variegated and colorful plants you use will also significantly improve the aesthetic. I probably used a little more on this one than I would typically like to. However, I was somewhat limited on what plants I could obtain in a short amount of time. Regardless, having a good variety will make things look interesting and engaging. And if you ask me, I feel like that's kind of the point of having a living wall anyway. So my piece of advice would just be to make a selection that you think is interesting. The system is completely dry, so we better add some water before these plants dry up. I used my sprayer to get water all down through the foam to ensure these ropes absorb it. After all of that, I really didn't care for the void space in the front. That's an easy fix though. I just rehydrated some sphagnum moss and filled it in. The result looks pretty cool if you ask me. I'll do a few more things to fine tune the look, but before then, I'll address lighting. If I were to keep this somewhere with a lot of natural light, then I wouldn't have to do anything. However, chances are that I'll keep it near my desk, which means it won't be near a window. So I decided to outfit it with this little LED gooseneck light instead. It has mounting tape on the back, which allowed me to stick it to the container. For me, I always like to embellish these projects just a little more than I probably need to. In this instance, I think a few pieces of driftwood could help take it to the next level and make it look even cooler. And there you have it, a very easy and straightforward solution to create a mini tropical tabletop living wall. This is the perfect piece to have at your computer desk or the office because of its small size. Plus, things like terrariums and living walls are a great way to bring some zen to your workspace. As I said earlier in the video, a piece like this is very easy to care for. What exactly is involved with that though? First and foremost is making sure that it remains wet. Obviously, all of that was accounted for within the design itself. However, even though the ropes hold water, adding a little bit every few days will be imperative for its success. Water has to come from somewhere, and if the system dries up, so will the plants, and thus it will fail. So periodically checking it and adding water as needed is probably the most important thing to account for. While adding water to the system is also a good time to feed the plants. Since this living wall doesn't have any substrate, occasionally feeding the plants with a liquid fertilizer is pretty important. The frequency and strength will all depend on the plants and the fertilizer of course, but it's a pretty straightforward process. Since these are living plants, they're going to do what plants do, grow. Because of this, you'll need to periodically trim things up to maintain the aesthetic and to ensure there's enough room for everything to shine within the design. You'll have to do this more or less depending on what plants you've selected, so just play it by ear. Otherwise, there's not much involved other than sit back and enjoy. And that's the beauty with a system like this. Easy and cheap to build, easy to maintain, and easy to appreciate. Anyway, I think that's a great place to conclude. As always, I hope you've all enjoyed the project and learned something new. Until next time, Serpa Squad, take care and peace.